What's up, people, and welcome to another episode of ASAP, Afrikan Social Activism Playbook. I am one of your hosts, T. Jamal, joined as always by my lovely sister, Michelee. What's going on with you today?
Hey brother, I'm doing real good. I'm feeling nice. I just completed a workout this morning. Well, early, this afternoon. So yeah, I'm feeling real good. I fixed lunch, so I'm ready to go for the day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
How about you? How you feeling? How's the family and everything?
Everybody is doing okay.
Mhm.
People are doing much better. For those of you that didn't know, both my parents and my older brother tested positive for coronavirus, so it's not a joke. And they were not
It's real.
asymptomatic. They
Hmm.
had symptoms. They were not doing good, but they just took it. They like treated it like the flu. Because I was trying to figure out for all this time, I couldn't figure out what the actual treatment was. All I kept hearing was people tested, and then some people recovered. Some people tested, and then some people, didn't. So it was like, okay, so what's the medicine? What are they giving people other than just the
Right.
test? Because I was like, that ain't enough. Um, but yeah, it was just about them treating it like the flu. They took Theraflu, they took cough medicine, and they've been loading up on vitamin C. And now everybody is feeling much better. My mother lost her sense of smell, which is one of the symptoms,
Crazy. Yeah.
which was so disturbing. But they're on the other side of it. I think she said she started to smell at least the air freshener the other day.
Mhm.
So that
Okay.
is a good sign. It's, you got to take your wins where you can in this
Right.
whole thing. So yeah, but they have the energy back. They're doing what they need to do. And I haven't seen them in like what, a couple of weeks, like a little bit over 2 weeks, like 2.5 weeks right now. So it's affecting families out there. So please protect yourselves. We could have been past this if people would have just,
I'm telling you, because this whole
listened
year has
to
been
logic.
shut down. We have lost everything this year. It's like
It
it's man.
is
I was
it is
looking
September.
forward to I was looking forward to exploring some new places. I wanted to travel, but
Hmm.
at the same time, I'm grateful for just the I guess, we gotta pick the good parts out of it. I guess I'm grateful for, just this
Hmm.
time to really focus, sit down and focus and just work through a lot of things that a lot of times we wouldn't have the time to do because we're always ripping and running.
Yeah.
So it did allow us to have this time to, just kind of sit back and focus. And is like encouraging a lot of people to get on their grind. A lot of people can't control their
Hmm.
situations, with all these jobs being lost. And,
Right.
I appreciate that part. It's bringing out a lot of hustle.
That is true. And a lot of different opportunities and just a lot of people are just seeing the world in a different way, because when life is quote unquote normal, you get so confined in the restrictions of what you're used to life being. And
Hmm.
like, one of the things that breaks you out of that is like traveling outside of your comfort zone. You start to see the world as like an outsider, so you start to see things. You know how it is when you're looking at somebody's face, you can see
Hmm.
what's on their face, but they can't see what's on their face. It's the
Right,
same
right,
thing when you go to another place. Like, you can see the possibilities of what people aren't taking advantage of, because you're seeing it with fresh eyes and they're seeing it with, okay, this is what I get up and do every day. And
right,
the same thing happened with this pandemic. Is it changed so much, it turned so much stuff upside down, that people had to really reassess what it is that we're seeing as normal. It's like,
right.
okay, so maybe I did actually have time to do all this stuff. I just didn't make time for it because I was
Prioritize
so used to my routine.
it.
We
Hmm.
get so stuck in our routines that we don't even realize time that we're wasting or opportunities that we're letting slide by. So
Yep.
that is a few things that this thing has done. And I keep saying this, like at the beginning of the year, December 31st, 2019, we were like 2020, the year of clear vision.
Mm-hmm.
This year has very much been a year of clarity and
Yeah.
revealing of things that a lot of people weren't trying to pay attention to. And
Yeah.
so it's good in that sense that it's bringing everything out to the open. The thing is, when you sweep stuff under the rug for so long, it becomes that much more difficult to clean up. So
Yep.
we got a lot of cleaning to do, but at least we can see it now, um,
Mhm.
and we know what areas to target. But yeah, so as always, this is ASAP, the African Social Activism Playbook. For those of you guys who don't know what that means, it is something that Michelee and I are actually working on. Um, it's a project from African Unity Initiative where we are looking at the past. We're looking at the strategy and all of the activities from those who came before us,
Mhm.
understanding that a lot of the things that we need today have actually already been paved. They've actually already been done before. And we are, especially our activism of today, seems a lot more reactionary than it was in the past. If you
Right.
actually know it, they had a lot more strategy, they had a lot more consistency. They understood what the agenda was and they understood how to play the game. um, and it's funny how we lose a bit after these generations because we start to gain certain advantages and
Right.
start to lose our hunger for the information from our own because we've been accepted into other people's worlds. So
Mhm.
it's time for us to like re-engage with our own history and understand what the people did to even give us those opportunities. So it's called a social activism playbook because I believe that our coaches and our star players, our legacy, our Hall of Famers from the past, our Dr. Kings, our Malcolm X's, our Ella Bakers, our, Marcus Garveys, they laid down the foundation for us to build upon. It's just up to us right now to discover not the surface level Black history that they teach us, but the reality of the strategies that they actually implemented. And
Exactly.
we want to take those plays, and sometimes they may have to be, modernized to this time. But a lot of these plays, if we just do them exactly as they were done back then, they will still function today.
Yeah.
Because a
I
lot
have
of the times, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I have like when I talk to some people or and I hear people expressing just their frustration with what's going on now because it's been a long, hard battle, right? And it's still not over.
Yeah,
And so a lot of people would say things like, we still marching or we still fighting for the same things. Like, yes, we are still fighting for the same things. We haven't gotten them yet, right? And so instead of saying, well, obviously this doesn't work, that's what they'll say is like, obviously this method doesn't work. They already tried this a long time ago. No, we have to think about like, the change and the access to things that we have now, the access to resources, the time. Look at how technology allows us to connect with people around the world now. This is a great advantage. Imagine if they had this way back in the day. So we
right.
have to take advantage of the new tools that we have, but with the
Hmm.
same mission. So that's why the blueprint is important. This playbook will be so important for us because we'll be able to look back at old methods, that were tried and true because they were effective. We can't sit and say that, marching didn't work or, boycotting and all. It did work. We just need to understand how to apply these same
Right.
strategies, right? Because these were strategies. It wasn't like, just emotional reactions to things. It wasn't short term. When we actually look back to these past events, that got us. We do have some gains from that. Someone recently just asked
Mm-hmm.
me, well, what did the civil rights movement do? What do you mean? What did it do? You wouldn't be able to, it's just like, I don't know. We get into this. I
It's
think for a
again,
lot of us younger people now are frustrated. They're just frustrated with seeing it. Imagine being way back then when they had even less rights and privileges than we do now. Imagine
right.
how frustrating that could have been. So
The
it's like, we just don't be disrespectful to the
the thing
process.
is, we learn history, especially Black history,
Mm-hmm.
on the shallowest end of the pool and on the most surfacest of levels. So
Mm-hmm.
we know some names, and even a lot of the most impactful names we still don't know, right?
Right.
We know a few names, we know a few events, and then they keep showing you the event, but you think that the event didn't really take time to plan. So you'll see
Right.
the
Mm-hmm.
march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. You'll see movies like Selma, and you won't really understand the gravity of how much was put into that one thing, how much time, commitment,
Yep.
resources, people's brain energy, and
Yep.
really thinking about, okay, how do we do this in a way that will be the most impactful?
Right.
So there were so many layers to it. There was the legal layer. Okay, we need the legal fund to bail us out when we get arrested. We need the cameras there to make sure that they catch the brutality of them while we're being nonviolent. We need
Right.
the economic piece to make sure that we have the funds to feed people as they
Mhm.
are going on these marches, as they are doing these freedom rides, as they are doing this or that, as we advertise, like as we print up these newspapers. None of this stuff was free. It didn't just
Right.
come by happenstance. We needed the funds and the plan to enact a boycott so that we
Right.
can have the alternatives, so that when we boycott this one thing, people don't just, lose out on everything that they need.
Mm-hmm.
So it took time, it took planning. The thing that we have today in the technology takes away from our patience and our willingness to just, okay, let's think, let's see what the action needs to be in the face of this type of situation. And
Right.
then let's move forward like this. Also, they teach us our historical figures in a confrontational context. It's
Mm-hmm.
either you are a Malcolm or a Martin, either you
Yeah.
are a Du Bois or a Washington, either you
Mm-hmm.
are a this or a that. And so we don't ever look at them as, no, for this situation, Malcolm's approach is the best. For this
Right.
type of situation, Martin's approach is the best. For this
Mm-hmm.
type of situation, we need to employ Du Bois. In this situation over here, though, we need to employ Booker T. And so it's so important to understand the value of everyone and
Right.
all of the plays. Like when we say a playbook, we're taking plays from all of the legends, all of the
Mm-hmm.
coaches, all of the people who have done this before. So, and I,
Right.
I just went on that little soliloquy to let people know what the playbook is about, because sometimes as educated people, especially those of us who had the fortune to study African American studies or, something like that in school, when we learn something, we believe that everybody else around us learned it with us. So it's old information to us, but we have to realize that it's new information to so many people and that it needs to be restated and re-talked about over and
Right.
over again. So
Definitely.
our Straight Truth No Chaser today is called The Maroon Within Us, which is the title of a book by one of my favorite scholars, Dr. Asa G. Hilliard. And in this book, what he's talking about is there is a level of resistance within African born people African descendants, no matter where we are, no matter how long we've been away from Africa, there's a piece of Africa in us that comes
Mhm.
out in different things that we do. And we've never just accepted our lot of oppression
Right.
passively, which is what they would like for you to believe in a lot of the depictions and a lot of our education, that we were just, smiling on the plantation, just, happy, right? Um, if you are Black, you realize that we are used to struggle. So we laugh through it because laughing is better than crying. If you can't
Right.
control something, I'm I laugh when I can't pay my bills because it's like I can't pay you anyway. What I'm gonna cry about it for? Like
Right.
I will give you your money when I have it. Other than that, you can stop calling my phone. And so just think about that in the context of our people are built that way, where we
Mhm.
will we will find a good time in the midst of
Oh,
tragedy.
for sure, for sure. That's something that we talk about and that we see now, right? Like even in the midst of all the tragedy that's going on, throughout our lives. Like it's not like this is something very new. But
Hmm.
I think for a lot of us, coming into our adulthood and it's starting up again, right? We see like the outward racists again and and all this stuff going on. And we still find the time and the energy to be able to laugh and have a good time. And it's like that's important though. We have to, like, when we talk about self-care and all these other things, that part is going to be very important. We're going to need to find the joy in some of this. It's a terrible situation, right? But don't get distracted by that. Don't get confused that because we can have a good time and we can smile, um, that we've lost sight of the mission, and
Right.
just make sure that you don't lose sight of the mission. Don't try to have too much fun to where, you kind of drowning it out. We just
Hmm.
always have to keep that in mind, keep our mission in mind,
Yeah.
instead of just, but we don't have to be so focused, right? I mean, be focused, but
Focus.
don't be
Yeah.
stuck on the tragedy, to let it
We don't
hinder
have to
you.
be so serious.
Yeah.
We don't have to be stuck in a moment of stone faced, because
Mm-hmm.
that's just impossible, and you can't be
Yeah.
a human like that. We're dehumanizing
Or
ourselves at that point. And
definitely.
we're then doing their job for us because we're letting the situation control our narrative. We're letting it define who we are and
Mm-hmm.
not. And that's why on this platform you will always hear us say enslavement. You will
Yeah.
hear us say, we will go out of our way to say things the long way to control our discourse, because enslavement is a situation that you have been placed in. You weren't born a slave.
A
You
slave.
were
Yeah.
made into that and put into a situation of enslavement.
Mm-hmm.
You are born a human. And so
Right.
even in the situation of what we're facing today, we are, yeah, we're going through trials and tribulations as Black people globally, but we can't allow that to define our very presence. We
Yeah.
are aware of it. We're going to do something about it, but we're also still going to live. We're also still going to smile. We're also still going to love each other, right? And that's how they win, by we let them control our narrative and tell us that how we need to be. And we're
Mm-hmm.
always reacting to them, which is,
Right.
not the case. So that's going to be the theme of this week, the maroon within us talking about what we've done. And we're about to give you a little bit of a clue of what a maroon is if you don't already know. So our highlight reel today is of none other than Queen Nanny of the Maroons herself, who was a very influential, inspirational, spiritual leader of a Maroon society called the Windward Maroons in Jamaica. And we're going to play a little clip for you guys so that you can learn a little bit more about Queen Nanny and her contribution.
All right.
The Right Excellent Nanny of the Maroons is Jamaica's only heroine and perhaps Portland's most infamous native.
She's an iconic figure in Jamaican history, and her legacy has been celebrated in poems, portraits, and currency.
Much of Nanny's early life is unknown, including her birthplace. What is certain, however, is that she, along with other enslaved people, sought refuge from a brutal slave society in the Blue and Jankro Mountains, where together they established a Maroon community.
It is often cited that under British rule, the Maroons were perhaps the first set of people to settle in Portland, and that it was this settlement, coupled with Portland's unfavorable climate, which deterred white settlement here.
But who exactly were the Maroons? And how did Nanny become their most powerful leader?
During the 15 to 1600s, enslaved Africans brought to Jamaica by the Spanish escaped into the Blue and Jankro Mountains, taking refuge with the Tainos, who had sacred sites deep in the interior of the island.
The enslaved Africans were called Cimarrones by the Spanish, a term the English would later translate to Maroons.
By 1640, the Maroons had established settlements in the east of the island. This group, consisting of 600 women and children and 300 men, were known as the Windward Maroons.
In 1655, when Britain captured Jamaica from Spain, it instituted a system of slavery that was so harsh that it resulted in a mass exodus of enslaved people who fled to the mountains, increasing the size of the Maroon settlements.
The capital of the settlement became known as Great Negro Town, and later Nanny Town.
The English insistence on settling these lands led to the outbreak of the Great Maroon War.
Beginning in 1725,
it was during the height of the Great War, 1728 to 1734, that the Maroons, under the leadership of Nanny,
and using their superior knowledge of the mountains, waged a successful guerrilla war against the British.
The British eventually relented with the signing of a peace treaty in 1739 with the Leeward Maroons, and in 1746 with the Windward Maroons. Though the details of Nanny's life are still shrouded in mystery,
She likely died in 1750.
Nanny remains a symbol of resistance and power in Jamaican history. In 1976, the government of Jamaica declared Nanny a national heroine.
Got your mochaccino?
All right. Yeah, you know how those
So-
ads.
So the thing is, I don't know how many people know about Queen Nanny of the Maroons, or even the Maroons of Jamaica in the first place. I didn't learn about it until I was an adult, until I was in college. And this is what we talk about when we talk about controlling our narrative and not allowing other people to give us only the shallow ends of our own history.
Right.
We need to know that we resisted, and that we didn't just resist with the aid of other people. Like in the United States, the Underground Railroad and all those things traveling north, and Harriet Tubman, we know those stories. You know why we know those stories? Because in the United States, there were white people who were, significant in assisting, who were allies, and they always need to paint themselves in at least some type of positive light that they can fall back and say it wasn't all of us.
Definitely.
Well, in these Maroon societies, one of the things that happened in the Caribbean is there were never that many white settlers, colonizers who stayed because they couldn't take the heat. Like literally the climate wasn't favorable, and so not many of them settled. And so when you look at things like the Haitian Revolution or the Maroon societies that developed, there aren't any white saviors, so they're not going to tell us about it. So we have to dig deep and find these things out ourselves, or when we know, we have to take it upon ourselves to as a responsibility to share it with our peers and our fellow people so that they know this information. But like the Maroon Society wasn't just escaping from enslavement, leaving the plantation and moving to another area. It was creating a fortified community where not only did they escape from enslavement, they protected one another from ever being captured again. Not only that, they also re-implemented their African culture. So they were able to freely practice their African spirituality, freely speak their language, freely do, all of the ceremonial things from their culture. And, they weren't that far removed from being brought over from Africa. So they still had memory. And so this is so important for us to acknowledge and appreciate, because it shows you that even throughout the transatlantic experience, we didn't just magically lose our connection to Africa immediately. It had to be beaten out of us. It had to be oppressed out of us. It had to be tortured out of us. And so in the societies that were able to create these Maroons, and like one of the things that I loved in that video, it showed you the treaty from the Windward Maroons and the treaty from the Leeward Maroons, which means there were multiple Maroon societies. And they actually went to war with the British and backed them down into leaving them alone.
Yeah, that was guerrilla warfare right there. Like, I don't think necessarily we're in a position to do like combat in that way right now, just considering all the the military, the weapons and stuff. We don't have that, but just considering like, making a treaty, right? Coming to the agreement, that's political. That's dealing with politics right there, right? That's negotiating. And and so that's the power that we do have, but we have to again come together like as that community, as a unit, and and work towards those goals. That's why when we talk about like having an agenda, and fulfilling those things on our agenda, those things are going to be important to negotiate, because if we are all separated, like well, I want this, well, I don't really care about that, well, like then we stay divided, and it doesn't, it's not a cohesive idea and a cohesive plan to take and negotiate anything. Because what we do know, we are in this situation. A lot of us are going to choose to stay in America, throughout the diaspora, different places outside of Africa. And so we're going to have to basically, just figure out how to live there, because we're not the only ones there, right? We do have to negotiate. We are going to have to figure out a way to live there, not just survive, but to thrive like they did, going into these Maroon societies and these communities. They found a new way of life, right? Like they were trading amongst each other, they were farming, and they were, still living, and not just, they weren't just in hiding, right? They were actually thriving in a community on their own. Like you said, they were able to practice their own spiritual systems and languages and things like that. And so if we want to be independent of that system, not having to be dependent, not having to be relying on them to tell us what we can and can't do, we're going to have to come together and realize that this is, and we can look at the models that we had before, and just realize that we have to come together to be able to accomplish these things.
One of the things about guerrilla warfare that I did want to stick on is that guerrilla warfare is only effective when you have a decided advantage of home field, when you know your terrain better than your opponent.
Yeah.
And you can always give them, you can sneak up on them because you know they put themselves in the mountains, which means that in order to come and attack them, you have to put yourself at a disadvantage of climbing up a mountain. I'm already at the height advantage, so now we're shooting down while you're shooting up.
Yeah.
You're attacking up. You don't know where we're coming from. We coming out of trees. We coming from under you. We got you surrounded because we know, and we already know the terrain much better than you. So just think about that that's the literal context of guerrilla warfare. But there's still a way that we can impose guerrilla war in the society that we're in now. We know our environment better than those coming in to gentrify it, better than those coming in to do whatever it is that their intentions are. Even the politicians, when they come in and they want to tell you what they're going to do for you, it's not their job to tell you what they're going to do for you. It's your job to tell them what they need to do.
Right.
You know the terrain. You know what needs to be done. So you put the plan together. It's up to us to understand all of that. We know better than them. So it's not, we're not going to go and take up arms literally and go to war right now. Right? But there are other ways to fight. There are other ways to resist. And, the warfare, it didn't start with war. The Maroons just went on themselves and said, no, we're going to create this new society and we're going to embrace who we are and we're going to control our own narrative. And that's pretty much what we're saying that we need to do as a people. Make sure that we control our narrative. Make sure that we are in control of what happens to us and how we react to things, and making sure that we aren't always on the back foot, just reacting to what they've done. One of the good things about the social activism playbook is that we're going to have defensive plays as well as offensive plays. And the defense is going to be broken down into situations where we are reacting to something, that some tragic thing or some atrocity that is put upon us, like us being killed by the police. How do we respond? And what's our defense against that? But there are also going to be offensive plays of what do we do even when things seem sweet, even when times are good. We need to be planning our offensive. We need to be putting things together to build up our economics, to build up our political strength, to build up our educational enforcements, so that we have something in place to fall back on when things get out of hand. Right now, it just feels like we're falling on concrete. So, it's going to be just these lessons for us to just really know about. We have to dig deep. One of the things that we always do in this show is in the comment section and in the description of these videos, we put links to books that you can read. We put links to videos that you can go watch, so that you're not just taking my word for it. You're not just listening to Michelee. You're going out and looking at it for yourself to see, okay, how can I contribute? What can I do? How can I be a part of this?
And talk to other people who do have knowledge. Like one thing we often talk about, in our personal conversation is just, just the wealth of knowledge that we have in elders and people who have lived through certain experiences, and we have to be careful to not let that, letting our libraries burn down. We have to get that knowledge while we still have access to it firsthand, just accounts of what went down. And, and that knowledge is still living on. We have to take advantage, and, we can apply those same things. We can figure out what works, and, and how just to keep that spirit. Because I would love to hear, from a whole lot of people who passed on, but just hear how they survived and how they felt during those times. Because again, we talked about it being frustrating because this is long and hard. It's not going to be something overnight. And I think this society, especially, we got to consider how the times are going on, and just new advances in technology and different, how everything is so convenient. We're used to like a microwave society. Everything is quick and easy. Everything is overnight. Even when we call ourselves holding boycotts and protests and stuff now, we'll call for a boycott for one day or for just one weekend. And it's like the strategy that goes into these things to really be effective, it takes way more than that. It takes sacrifice. And I think with us being comfortable, because it is hard, and I know people are tired, we want to enjoy stuff, right? We want to be able to relax and to not always feel like we're working, but it takes sacrifice. Just imagine if you don't want to be held captive, right? Like, and you don't know this area that you're in like a foreign land, you're going to have to go hide out. That means you don't have a toilet. You're not going to have a shower, a hot shower. You're not going to have, the things that you want to eat. So are you ready to make those sacrifices? Or are you just trying to be comfortable in your oppression? We just really have to think about that. Think about where we want to go, where we need to go, so that we are not staying in this position where we're dependent on that system. We have to really make it work for us, make it not just have the oppression work for us, but really figure out a way to to thrive in this situation, not just survive.
You're talking about sacrifice. Sacrifice is going to come, right? So either you're going to sacrifice on the front end by what you choose to sacrifice and say, okay, I will sacrifice shopping at this store or supporting this brand for this period of time. And yeah, I may want it, but I'll sacrifice so that in the long term, we can get this. Or you can indulge yourself on the front end and then sacrifice your freedom and then complain about why we haven't made that many advances. So either way, a sacrifice is being made. You're making the decision. Is it going to be a generational sacrifice, or is it going to be a little, momentary sacrifice?
Think about it, even like when we talk about health, like, when we talk about food, like when I first went plant-based and I had to make that decision, like, will I just, well, some of this stuff is not the tastiest, right? I had to like reprogram my mind. Like I hated mushrooms before. And now I eat mushrooms almost every day, and like just, different things that I wouldn't necessarily care to eat before. I wasn't really interested in them. Like, oh, they smell a little funny, or this, it's little, I don't know. But a lot of times we think about, even we can see it in our daily lives, there's different sacrifices, different things, decisions that we make. Do you want to just suck it up and get used to the taste? Because a lot of things, it's an acquired taste. You can get used to it. You can learn to like and love things. But you have to prioritize and say, well, do I want to pay for these groceries now? Do I want to pay, with tasting this, and it's not so, it's not the greatest thing I ever tasted, but in the long run, my arteries won't be clogged up. You know what I mean? Because you're going to pay with your health. Your body is going to feel sore. You're going to have all these different ailments, and then your health care will be expensive. So which one are you trying to pay for it? Groceries right now, produce? You want to go shopping for produce a little more often now, or do you want to wait and try to figure out how you're going to pay for all these different diseases that were preventable?
It's the same concept. Like you said, okay, healthy organic foods are more expensive than the cheap toxic induced produced foods, right? Massively produced foods. But okay, what's the weight between paying $4 extra for this healthy food or $5,000 to $50,000 extra on your hospital bill?
Because it's gonna
Like
catch up.
that's the you're gonna sacrifice somewhere. The sacrifice is coming. It's either gonna be intentional and your choice, or it's going to be involuntary and way out of your control. And so what we are doing on the front end by implementing this playbook, and honestly, again, just redoing the plays from our ancestors, building on the shoulders of those who've already come before us to show us the way. Those are the things that we have to do. Now, Michelee said that it takes more time than just a one-day boycott. But here's the thing that it doesn't take. It doesn't take 50,000 people to have a successful boycott. It only takes a critical mass of people to say that we're going to do this for a select period of time. Other people will see the success rate and they will join on. That is the thing. Like, we don't have to start off with 500,000 people supporting this one thing. It can start with 15 to 30 people and just do something consistently. And then people will start to catch on. You spread through word of mouth. You don't say all of our plans in business over public social media because everybody can see it. And those who want to disrupt our unity, those who want to distract our attention and have us lose our focus, will do everything in their power to have us do that. So we have to be so much more strategic. Like when you watch sports and you see a coach, they have the playbook like this. And then they like look at it and then put it back down. They have microphones in the helmet of the quarterback, so it can go straight from the coach's mouth to the quarterback's ear, so that the other team doesn't know what's happening.
Right.
In baseball, they have signals. You don't know. They change these signals every game.
Yeah.
Because players get traded, and one player might play for Atlanta one day, play for New York tomorrow, and know all the signals. No, I can't risk that. So I gotta keep changing these signals so that nobody else but my team knows what's happening. And we have to be committed to each other like that. We have to be on the team. We are not against one another. This is African unity. We're talking about us all coming together. And when we say African, we're talking about the diaspora as a whole, which is why we're highlighting Maroons of Jamaica, to let everybody know that, you know, this show isn't limiting the scope of what African is or what Blackness is or what the struggle, the Black freedom struggle consists of. We're talking about all of us together, looking at each other as one and supporting one another and making sure that we support each other. We revel in each other's victories. We celebrate with one another, right? And that's very important, that we don't have the crab in the barrel mentality of either just hating on each other, or even if it comes from a place of good intentions where you're just trying to overly protect people. We can't do that either.
Yeah, don't let that fear stop you in your tracks, you know, and stop other people. It'll have you, you know, like a lot of times I know from my experience and a lot of people I talk to, even, you know, thinking about like career choices, how some people, even in some cultures, you know, I'm hearing that, you know, it is like more liberal arts type, you know, more like artistic careers and stuff are kind of looked down upon. They're kind of, like, no, you got to be a
Mhm.
doctor or a lawyer, and it's like, I want to be, I can really be great in this though,
Right.
but it's a fear though. It's a fear of not wanting your child or, your loved ones to be left out in the cold, to be,
Mhm.
just struggling. And so, but we have to still remember, like, this is so important because the sacrifices that we make today will benefit the next generation. We might not be here to see all the fruits of our labor, but does that mean that we stop doing the work? We can't take after the example, of the people who we living amongst now, who don't care about, we see global warming, and they don't care about who the planet is going to be left to after they're gone. They
Right.
just, just tearing it up now. We cannot have that mindset. We always have to be, just think like with this holistic mindset and how it's going to be great for everyone, not just us personally.
Yep. And that's one of the other things about, Maroon within us. It's also just about understanding that within us as Black people, as African descendants, there is Africa in us. It doesn't matter where we were born. So our proclivity is to think generations ahead.
Yeah.
And so we can't leave the earth destroyed because we're thinking about our great great grandchildren and understanding that even though I won't be here to see the damage of the destruction that I've caused, somebody, in my genealogy will. And that is not acceptable. Right. And so we have to think the same way that we do on a global stance, like literally globally of the world, but we have to look at ourselves in our fight for freedom and our struggle to maintain that freedom. The struggle doesn't end once we get the freedom. You got to maintain it. You got to keep it. And so I wanted to move into our deconstructed because I chose this movie today for a particular reason. 12 Years a Slave, a movie that I don't particularly enjoy. Yeah, so it's a true story about a free Black man who was pretty much well-to-do in his life, had a family, wife, children, was a musician, and then found himself enslaved for 12 years. You want to say anything about this movie?
Let me see. I did know about this story, but
we got Lupita out of it.
yeah, I know, right? But I don't know. It was just interesting. I'm interested to see your breakdown of it. I do. It took me a while to watch the movie. I didn't watch it while I was in the theater.
Yeah, I didn't watch it immediately either.
Yeah, because I don't know. It was an interesting production.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on it?
The way I believe it was Brad Pitt is in this movie, right? And then there is Armie Hammer. So Armie Hammer is like the horrible slave owner guy. And he's like the worst. But then he hires Brad Pitt to come, like he's a construction worker or something. And he comes in and he's building this thing in some type of way. He gets into conversation with Solomon, who is the protagonist, I guess you can say, of the story. And I guess he sees his humanity and he hears his case that he shouldn't be there. Right. And he fights on behalf of him. So I have multiple problems with this. You know me. I'm all about champions.
Right.
So my issue with Solomon is that he was not supposed to be there. Mm-hmm. Not that the institution shouldn't exist. It's wrong because he's there. not because all of his people are there. It's wrong because he's there. That
Oh, you
rubs me
got the
the
wrong
wrong way.
one. You picked the
You're
wrong
right.
one. Throw that fish back in the ocean.
I was born free. See, this, and it goes back to Martin Delaney, another person born free, but was a astute and constant abolitionist. Never saw a day as an enslaved person, but didn't say it's wrong because I went through it, but it's wrong as an institution. So Solomon is, pleading his case of why he shouldn't be there. And I understand, true. He was trying to get back to his family. He actually lost people that he loved. He was trying to get back to them. So I do understand that motivation, but it still kind of rubs me the wrong way because it didn't present him as a champion. It presented him as somebody who needed a handout from a white savior.
Right. You always got to have a white savior in there.
Who came in and just was like the most magical person in the film. He comes in and the whole tone of the film changes and stuff just starts to look up. And it was just disturbing in so many ways that this is the story that they decided to tell, and that's the way they decided to depict it. And it's a true story and all of that, but it's just this story got told with no hindrance. But when Nate Parker came out with Birth of a Nation, the Nat Turner story, it got praise until they felt like, okay, this is getting too much praise. We got to destroy that man's character and destroy his film in the process. People were buying tickets to Birth of a Nation, and their tickets said other films so that the money didn't go to the box office. I remember
that. Yeah.
And so 12 Years a Slave is Hollywood's, America's safe movie to present us enslavement. They show a little bit of the brutality, but then they, as much as they show the harshness of a white person, they show you the generosity of a white person so that you can't really pin it on racism.
Right. Because that's the tactic. That's the whole tactic, though. Even when we think about now how people, we know what they mean. Like we know what make America great again means, right? They are not, we know that it's what do you call it? Political correctness, because it'll get you in trouble to state certain things. So when they start talking about states' rights and and all these different things and Blue Lives Matter and make it about our flag, it's about our flag, it's about patriotism. We know what the actual conversation is, but we have to look at how the language has to change so that you won't be, you won't
bamboozled.
Yeah.
The thing is, I'm from the South, so my racism has always been in my face. I've always known where my parameters are and who is what they are. They are not afraid to say it out loud and very clear. It's how I like it. I like it served up hot. I don't like to be stabbed in the back.
That's so interesting though, because being from California, being from LA, it was only one time that I remember ever seeing it, like, and hearing it with the words actually being used. It was one time we were in Orange County. I was in a high school in Upper Bound program in high school, and it was an incident where a truck full of white kids, rolled by saying, go home, like N-words, go home, or something. And it was just so strange because, and I didn't think that racism didn't exist. I knew that it was, more nuanced and, it's in other ways, other forms, right? That we see it is, it's like, a 1,000 little paper cuts versus, just one stab, but I think a lot of times we don't see it because it's been strategically removed. The language, the exact language, has been strategically removed so that you cannot just say, okay, this is what it is. When you go to court, like with we just talked
Right.
about what's his name?
Byron Allen.
Byron Allen, and having to make that case in court. They were not able to pinpoint it and say, well, this is because of racism, because why? If they control the language, right? They control, it has to be said like this. It has to be done.
Yep.
It has to look exactly like this. They're gonna find new ways to say what they're saying without saying it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just have to be smart. We have to be up on game, about that. And
Yep.
I don't know, because I think the emotional thing, people get caught up in the emotional part when we hear it. Like you, I would like to know who I'm dealing with up front. Don't be faking my face smiling and behind my back.
One of the reasons I can see the benefit of what 2020 is going to do for our people, because I, as a Black person who is from Atlanta, have had so many heated debates with Black people over the need of the type of work that we're doing.
Right.
Because Black people felt like everything was peachy.
Absolutely.
They got comfortable. And
Absolutely.
now we can see very much so that there is never a time to get comfortable, even when you're winning.
Right. Exactly. Don't stop training because you won one race. You have to stay in that shape. And it's going to go on. Like, that's the thing, is that, again, we talked about having patience and understanding that the fight is not one stage. Imagine where they came from. Think about where they came from. Even we talk about like past enslavement, right? Like after the Emancipation Proclamation, and after all of these different countries, and places that have gotten rid of slavery now, right? It's different stages to it. We don't have to experience what they experienced then. We didn't have to go through sharecropping. Thank our elders for that, right? We didn't have to go through the Jim Crow, era with and walking through back doors and being degraded and humiliated like that, every day, and you cannot escape it. And having the worst of worst, resources and things when you're trying to learn. We didn't have to experience a lot of those things. So be grateful for the work that they did for us to be in the position that we are in now. And so guess what? Instead of getting comfortable and saying, well, we have it now, we have to still think about, well, what tools can we dig up, can we make for our next generation coming up so that the fight gets easier for them? When we talk about like generational wealth and stuff, right? Yeah. We talked about glorifying the struggle. We can't glorify the struggle and being like, well, you got to be from the hood. My hope is that my children won't have to come from the hood. I don't want every generation after me. The work that I'm doing now, I want to be able to build so that the next generation and the generations after that are, better off and don't have to start from square one. When we talk about having a house, that's something that's one less struggle that your children, the next generation after you, are going to have to, that's one struggle that they won't have to deal with, right? Mm-hmm. They won't have to worry about, I got to do this and that. I have to work on my career. But at the same time, I have to work, this other job so that I can just keep a roof on my head. No, they already have a roof for their head. So now you can focus more of your attention and efforts on this other mission. That's how we build up. We have to not lose sight of that there's always something more to work to, especially starting from under. We didn't start from ground level. We started from under. So first we got to dig ourselves from underground. Now, then we can be on ground level, and then you start to build. It's a whole process.
The thing is, we started underground, but the tools that we are using to get from underground have already been created for us by those who came before us. So we are in the basement, but we have the levee or the shovel or the hammer to build our way out of that and to build ourselves up into so much more. We are at such a place of advantage right now that we can draw on what they have already done. We have all of the resources to be able to put it all in one place and to see, okay, this is how we should utilize this. We just have to start implementing it. Like I said last week, we're going to start that calling our representatives campaign. And it's going to start. I'm still calling people and I'm going to get those responses. And I'm going to start with just 30 people, like I said. And we're going to go from state to state, from city to city. And we're going to call a representative for a consistent amount of time. We're going to set a time period and say, we're going to call this person. We're going to email them and we're going to write letters. We're going to do all three consistently.
Right.
For a period of time until we get their attention, until they're like, oh, okay, these people are serious. We're going to show that our constituency goes beyond the polls. We're definitely going to vote. We're going to do more than that.
Right.
And we're going to consistently do more than that. And understanding that the beautiful burden that we carry doesn't end. It gets a little bit lighter because more people join on as they see us succeed. But it only takes that critical mass to start. We will see the masses of people that come out to a march on Washington when that critical mass starts doing the work bit by bit, building the blocks. Then you start to see people come into the neighborhood and like, okay, this is nice. I like what y'all built over here. I want to come in. And we don't shame bandwagon fans over here.
Right.
It's not
right. It don't matter who they
you.
got the message from or when they got it, as long as they got
exactly. Yep. As long as you get the message, as long as you down with what we're down for, you are welcome. If you just got your jersey yesterday and I've had mine since '86, I don't care.
Team, right?
Exactly.
You on the team. We got a mission. We got a game to win.
So, you know, this is what this is about. This is who we are about. Wanted to make sure that we leave off letting you know that. So this week we're talking about the Maroons, and we want you guys to use this time to look up Queen Nanny, look up the Maroons of Jamaica, look up the Maroons. There were Maroon societies in the United States as well. They don't tell us about those because they only want us to know about the type of aid that we received with their assistance.
Exactly. Imagine what that would do to the system, though. Imagine what that would do for us. And that's why when we talk about this, right, when we talk about why it's important to highlight our history and just relearn, because a lot of us, we didn't know our history. A lot of us, like you said, from the very beginning, we had to learn this stuff as adults already. We were already, legal and didn't know any of this stuff before. And so we have to, it's our responsibility. We cannot complain about, it's messed up. We can talk about how messed up it is that the knowledge that we get, or the knowledge that we don't get in school, in our public school system, or anything, that it's messed up, that it doesn't tell our whole story, it's shortcutting our story or it's misleading. We have to take that as a personal responsibility to tell our own history, to write our own books, to create a different, even if you didn't have it in your family, a traditional history, of storytelling, of just different methods. Try something new. Maybe it was something that you think it wasn't as entertaining. We talked about like Hamilton before, and how entertaining they made the history, right? I wouldn't have known anything about Alexander Hamilton for real, but that was I would have never even been interested, but it was how they made it entertaining. Maybe we can be more innovative, right? To just come up with ways, start trends, create new propaganda, create good propaganda, things that will catch people's attention, so that it makes the learning process more interesting. It sticks with us, right? And think about like when you look up Queen Nanny, and I call my grandmother my queen. Her name was Nanny to me, right? That was my nanny. But that's why I really love, this story, but, or love, Queen Nanny. But when you look at her, she is like if you love Harriet Tubman, right? This is a warrior woman. And she led these people. She helped other enslaved people escape, and welcome them into the Maroon community as well. And like we just really have to think of our heroes. They're heroes, right? These are people that kept fighting. Don't be discouraged and feel that, oh well, just since Black people have been in this position for so long that this is just where we belong, or we just can't get our stuff together. We have been resisting. We have been resisting from the very beginning. We have not stopped resisting, from the people who threw themselves overboard to resist, being in that system, from the people, just putting their bodies on the line for us to have certain privileges and rights today. These are things that we have to think about. Like, it's not going to be an easy or a quick job. This is a whole process. It's a whole mission. There are multiple layers of warfare, right? You got the negotiating stage. You got, physical warfare. You got all of these different things. And so we just can't shortcut it and expect results tomorrow. This is a fight that has been going on long before we were here, long before we were thought of. And it's our responsibility to just keep carrying that torch and, and digging up more pieces to the puzzle and start putting them together.
Definitely. Michelee, let the people know how they can support you.
You can find me at mishmashworld.com for my merchandise, handmade merchandise, and my Instagram associated with my business is Mishmash World also. And on my regular social media, if you want to get in touch, is Mishi the Maker. I haven't tweeted much. I keep saying it every week. I've probably made like maybe 2 or 3 tweets, but it's, I'm get into it. I'm get into it. I'm just trying to stay focused, man, but
And you can find African Unity Initiative at www.africanunity.us and everywhere on social media at African Unity. We implore you to please get involved. We are not just going to be on here talking. This is not just a talking platform. This is a talking to action. We're speaking people to action platform. So we hope that you get involved with the projects that we have going on. We have some serious projects that need to be funded in Peru, in Uganda, in Sierra Leone, and of course in the US. We're going to also be doing, again, that calling, letter writing, emailing campaign to hold our politicians accountable before November.
Yeah.
Up until November.
Yeah. And don't stop after November.
Like, we don't care. Like, we're going to make sure that our voice is heard. We're going to make sure that people know that we know the rules. We're playing the game. Like, this is called a playbook on so many levels for so many reasons, because we're on a big chessboard and they know that we don't know all of the rules, but we're going to give our people the game, and we're going to be, right for the taking. When it's time for us to take what's owed to us, we're going to be in position not only to get it, but to make sure that we use it responsibly, that it's done in the most valuable of ways that's going to benefit us right now and for generations going forward. So please get involved, continue to tune in, and, we love you guys. We'll see you guys same time tomorrow.
Yep.
Peace.
More resistance.